Today's video is another installment on my series about fear, and today we're going to be talking about pressure. Welcome back to Dusty Betty. My name is Tess. If you missed the first part of this series on fear, make sure you check out that video and I will link it for you. So a few months ago, when I had a pretty scary experience out on the trail, I decided to take a deep dive into the topic of fear. And it's taking some time to unpack all of this. It'll take some time to unpack it here on the channel as well. But one thing that I did really early on that helped alleviate a lot of the immediate anxiety I felt when I was writing had to do with recognizing pressure and where it's coming from. So if you're following along, then get a pencil and some paper and let's dive into this exercise. So the first part of this exercise involves writing down the things that you want to get out of your writing experience. So what needs to happen out on the trail for you to consider it a success? A lot of us might have some unique things on this list, but a lot of them will probably be pretty similar. But here is what my list looks like. One of the really big things that I want to get out of my writing experience is I want to have fun. I also want to get exercise. Another thing I like to get out of my experience is I like being able to gain skills and confidence and progress. Like progressing is a really exciting, fun part of any kind of pursuit like this. And one more thing that I put on my list was time with friends. I have to ride alone a lot of the time just to be able to ride as often as I want, but being able to ride with other people is another thing that I absolutely love about mountain biking whenever I can get that out of the experience. Now, a lot of these might seem really silly to have to actually consciously think about, but I think it's so important to. I think we recognize that these things are important on an intellectual level, but sometimes when we're out on the trail, we get tunnel vision and we get freaked out about what's going on in the moment, and we're so hyper-focused on that we forget to step back and look at what we really want out of this and look at the situation and say, what can I change about what I'm doing right now to create a more positive experience? The second part of this exercise involves recognizing some of the other pressures that we might feel when we're out riding on the trail. So here we go. Here's some examples from my history of mountain biking. One of the pressures is perfectionism. Now, I'm never going to be perfect. And so usually what this ends up looking like is I let the sections of a trail that I didn't ride cleanly, or maybe I walked, I let those parts of the trail dominate my whole experience. You know, this is a ride that probably would have been an otherwise really awesome and positive experience. So that perfectionism is a doozy, and it's one that we put on ourselves. It's one thing to want to progress your skills, but it's another thing to just be needlessly beating yourself up about things that you don't need to. Another pressure that a lot of riders, especially new riders, feel on the trail is that they are holding the whole group back. Even the best riders that I know don't mind sometimes going on a group ride that's more of a laid-back social group ride. And so I think, when people go on a ride like that, they know what they're getting into. So be kind to yourselves and just recognize that, hey, maybe the people I'm out on this trail with just want to ride with me. Another pressure that we might experience out on the trail is the desire to impress people, or maybe we're a little bit competitive, even in a non-competitive environment. And so when I say competitive, to me that's different than pushing yourself to progress. Being competitive is more like seeking that triumph over other people. Those of us who are recreational riders, that's just a whole set of pressure that we don't need to put on ourselves. I think that a lot of the positive things that come out of the competitive environment can be achieved in other ways. And I read a really interesting book called No Contest a few years ago by Alfie Kohn, and he just talked about how, we tend to competition to just seep into all these parts of life and society where it doesn't really need to be, and how it can actually be quite corrosive to us as individuals, to our relationships, and to society. So anyways, I know that's kind of like a rabbit hole, but I think it's healthy to kind of keep your competitiveness in check and keep it in a healthy place. So once we have these two lists, I think it's really good to look at them and, especially look at some of those pressures and recognize Are those serving what I really want out of my writing experience or not? And when I'm out on the trail and there are decisions to be made, to make sure that I'm really taking these into account, and that any pressure that I'm feeling is pressure that I do want there, that it's in a healthy place, and letting go of the rest. Putting unnecessary pressures on myself when I ride, find that it does one of two things. It either makes me chronically dissatisfied with my writing experience. The other possibility is that it has me putting myself in situations that I probably am not ready for or shouldn't be in. Now, I'm not saying that you don't ever lean into some of the discomfort that goes into writing, but it's good to look at that and be honest with yourself if pushing yourself a little bit too far is likely to have more of a negative than positive impact on what you want out of your experience. So I want to know from you guys in the comments, what are some of the things you want out of your writing experience? What are some of the pressures you feel? Is this a video that spoke to you? Have you had a similar experience or kind of gone through this process? Thanks so much for watching. Stay tuned for lots more on this series. Get dusty.